had this real incredible God moment where the Lord spoke to my heart and said, "You have the Liberty right, you have your Georges wrong." And my co-writer, Jeff Bender, and I, we got to work on the George Whitefield story and the most incredible events that took place in our history before the Revolution circled around the revivals and the awakenings that happened from 1739 to 1776. And the Lord brought this powerful preacher named George Whitefield from England who had a supernatural speaking voice. He could communicate to thousands of people without amplification. And the Lord placed him with the most unlikely friend, Ben Franklin, who had a printing press in Philadelphia and was the biggest influence and promoter of the Great Awakening. The beautiful part of the story is this. Benjamin Franklin was born the 10th son of his father, who was a Puritan clergyman, and he set Ben Franklin apart as a holy tithe to be a preacher. Ben Franklin didn't want to be a preacher. He ran the other way, only to realize years later he became the greatest promoter of the greatest awakening these colonies have ever seen. This film tells the true story of an unlikely friendship that changed literally our world and the nation that we have today.
And Josh, it's wonderful when we look at American history and we see God's hand. And I believe that this is a nation that was ordained by God, described as a city set on a hill.
Right.
I mean, God has a plan for America.
Yes.
And we are celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence.
Yes.
That event coming following these great awakenings. Now, Josh, and I'm sure that you're aware of this, even as we're speaking, we're seeing young people who are getting together and they are worshiping together and they're confessing sins and they're seeing God move in their midst. And we see this among many college students and young adults. There are those that liken this to a great awakening. In fact, what happened at Asbury just a couple of years ago was described as an awakening. Some say it's a revival. We're in a time of revival. It's very interesting that what eventually became America, the stage was set for it in the spiritual, in the spirit realm. And apparently Whitefield was one of the leading pioneers of this.
Yeah, no, he was. And, I always, government is downstream of culture, right? And so what happened during the 30 years that led up to the Revolutionary War, from 1739 to 1770, 1776, was an entire generation of Americans was under this umbrella of a spiritual awakening. That's a generation of people. So people ask the question, how were they a self-governing people? Well, that's how. They were under the moral umbrella and teachings of Whitefield and Jonathan Edwards and the Wesley brothers, and it created this generation of self-governing people. In fact, they were so self-governing that during the convention, one of the delegates said, "We don't need laws. Our morals alone will keep us, on the right path." Well, thank goodness we created the judicial system, right? But here's what you're getting at, which I couldn't agree with more. There is absolutely something happening in our nation right now with young people. I have a 19-year-old daughter. She's attending circuit riders out in California, and she's saying the same thing. She's like, we want authenticity. We want an authentic move of God. And that's what happened during the first Great Awakening with George Whitefield and Ben Franklin. Was their partnership promoted and got the word out for this incredible move of God. And the stories that you read from that time is absolutely incredible. Hundreds of thousands of people listening to the preaching of Whitefield and others, and they became this incredible group of people that who were able to say, look, liberty in us is not given to us by a king. It's a right given to us by God. Wow. And so when you start to connect all those dots, it's a part of our history that we have to know. And so I would say to all the parents that are listening, it's a real responsibility of ours to bring our children to a film like A Great Awakening, to show them a part of our history that is essential in our Christian homes.